Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balava Girivare Hari. Gopi Jana Balava Girivare Hari. Yasur Nanda Jana Rajana Yasura Nanda Jana Rajana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yaro Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivare Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivare Hari. Dasur Nanda Jana Rajana Dasura Nanda Jana Rajana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivare Hari. Yasura Nanda Jana Rajana Yasura Nanda Jana Rajana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Hari Go, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, go, Hari Bo. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Dev. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Dev. ISKCON founder Charger, Srila Prabhupada ki. Radha Shaiva Sundar, Nimai Ni Dai ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continuation of reading from Srila Prabhupada's Shikshamrita, or Srila Prabhupada's letter book. We're reading a section titled Back to Home, Back to Godhead. Letter dated the 11th month, 1971. Prabhupada says, I have noted especially your description of the unfortunate accident which took place and which took away our friends Jani Vasdas Brahmachari and Will Prabhu. So on one side we have to be very sorry if our dear friends are taken away from this world. And on the other side, we should be satisfied that a pure devotee is never lost. He gets another good chance to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Or if one is advanced, he goes back to home, back to Godhead. But if it is taken that the devotee is not mature, we should be confident that he will take birth in a rich or devotional family. We explained that yesterday. The unsuccessful devotee, in the sense that he didn't completely fulfill his responsibilities in his lifetime, then he can come back in the next life in a devotional family, where when he comes in, even as a baby, he has complete exposure to so much devotional understanding lifestyle. Or one can take birth in a rich family, because in such an arrangement, one can use that time to pursue God consciousness by hoping not being too caught up, because one will be less distracted by just maintenance or just trying to live easily, which takes an exorbitant amount of time. The devotee's position is always better than that of an ordinary karmic position. Karmic does not know what is in the next life, but devotees know it is as certain as it is for. Because even if it doesn't come back to God. So there's always a graduation, as long as there's devotion that's next to you. So part is Krishna service. I'm happy to accept them as my sincere disciples. Now to give them all the advice how to push on this Krishna conscious movement. Let them know for certain that something given to Krishna is never lost or wasted. Even if they are determined, they may go back to Godhead very soon. Letter dated 1171 also. I am very pleased that you have accepted the responsibility of managing such an important center as Berkeley. I know that there are many students in that city, so just attract them to our Krishna conscious movement by giving them prasadam and our Krishna conscious philosophy. We can challenge any nonsense philosophy. Socrates, Plato, Kant, Darwin, all of them. So many mental speculators and word jugglers who have misled so many people. Now it is your task to find them out and expose them so that the people may appreciate the real philosophy. We must become now very serious to save the people of the world from this very dangerous situation. So become very convinced yourself of our philosophy, and then your preaching will act. And try to sell as many books as possible at all the schools and colleges. This is scholarly information, flawless science. Kindly assist me in this great work, and know it for certain that you're sincerely working in this way, you shall very soon go back to home, back to Godhead. Please accept my blessings. I'm in due receipt of your kind letter of November 12, 1971, and I have appreciated the contents with great pleasure. Radha and Krishna have been so much merciful upon me to have given me so many nice spiritual sons and daughters as yourself. I can see by the photos of your Los Angeles temple that you are all very good servants of Radha and Krishna, and that they are very much pleased by your service. Thank you very much for assisting me in this way. Now my one request to you all is that you become fully happy by conducting your lives in Krishna consciousness. And you can know it for sure that in this way you will, come with me back to home, back to Godhead. Our service for Krishna is voluntary, can never be forced. And whatever position of life one holds, he can serve Krishna in that way. Krishna consciousness is not an imposition, in as much as that it's nothing really foreign put upon us, but is an internal, dormant realization and experience. But even the Krishna conscious structure is also not to be forced. The scriptures, as we were reading the other day, when we're reading from the letter, writing actually of quotes from Bhakti Siddhanta, and it was saying how the sadhu's duty is to literally cut away at the ropes of the three modes of material nature, or the sadhu's duty is to chastise you, criticize you. That Bhakti Siddhanta was saying, so one who flatters you is your enemy, in the sense that the sadhu who flatters you somehow is making you feel that, okay, you're okay, remain at that level, etc. Encouragement is, of course, always a part of the growth experience. But a major love exchange is a love of criticism, because it's to push, to encourage, to pull on. And obviously, we have all things to work on, otherwise we wouldn't be here in this material world. So Bhakti Siddhanta was saying, Prabhupada, spiritual master, that the sadhu who flatters you, or to receive flattery, that is dangerous. Because in spiritual life, we want to always be pushed. Not by force, but encouraged. Or at least we want, just as a coach does, always tries to shout out, call out, encourage, etc., as a way of trying to see a greater excellence of collective services. Krishna, practicing speaking, our Krishna conscious philosophy will save the whole world from the most dangerous condition. That is a fact. So now just become convinced yourself of this fact and help me spread this movement for saving the world with all conviction and attention. And in this way you'll be performing the highest type of activity, and very soon you will go back. My special blessings for Palika and Kaushalya Prabhus, who are doing so much for our Lord, and they must be specifically best to go back. Prabhupada is speaking about two of the women. Palika, she was acting as, she was Prabhupada's major cook at one time. And Prabhupada trained her up in so many ways about cooking, and she's one of the most expert cooks in the movement, as well as a very powerful woman who was very dominant in various ways in doing her services for Krishna. So Prabhupada was very pleased. With my blessings for Palika and Kaushalya Prabhus, who are doing so much for our Lord, they must be specifically blessed to go back home, back to Godhead, without any delay or waiting for the next life. Thank them very much on my behalf. He's writing to one of the leaders and asking the leader to convey this message to these these very, serious women. I am glad to hear the nice report about St. Louis Temple, and also that you are training yourself up nicely to be a serious preacher of this Krishna conscious movement. That much is wanted. Sincere men who become very strong for preaching work throughout the world on behalf of Krishna. Now you apply yourself to this task very seriously and become learned in all aspects of Krishna conscious philosophy. And take this opportunity in this lifetime for going back. Your next question after leaving this material world: does a devotee remain forever with his spiritual master? The answer is yes. But I think you have gotten the mistaken idea in this connection. You speak of pure devotee, that he is Shakyavesha avatar, that we should obey him only. These things are a wrong idea. If anyone thinks like that, that a pure devotee should be obeyed and no one else, that means he is a nonsense. In other words, we don't just serve Guru and say, well, I have no interest in anyone else, or I can't trust anyone else, or I have no love for anyone else, because as some of the devotees were discussing, as I heard when I was gone, that your love of Guru is shown by how you love each other, or your offenses toward each other is your offenses toward Guru. Because Guru's duty is just to train you how to prepare for the atmosphere of the spiritual world. So your preparation is based on how you associate with each other now. Otherwise, sometimes someone thinks, no, I'll just follow Guru's instructions and nobody else. Or that, no, I only trust my Guru. Such persons who say like that, they do not even trust the Guru, because they don't understand that Krishna is everywhere and manifested to associations and relationships of day-to-day experiences. We advise everyone to address one another as Prabhu. Prabhu means master. So how the master should be disobeyed. Others, they are also pure devotees. Everyone is really the same pure devotee. It's a matter of somebody may have uncovered themselves a little faster than others. All of my disciples, they are pure devotees. Anyone sincerely serving the spiritual master is pure. It may be Siddhaswarupa or others a Siddhaswarupa. This must be very clearly stated. It is not only that your Siddhaswarupa is a pure devotee and not others. Do not try to make a faction. Siddhaswarupa is a good soul, but others should not be misled. Anyone who is surrendered to the spiritual master is a pure devotee. It doesn't matter Siddhaswarupa or non-Siddhaswarupa. Amongst ourselves, one should respect others as Prabhu, as master. As soon as we distinguish here as pure devotee, here as non-pure devotee, that means I am a nonsense. Why you only want to be in the spiritual sky with Siddhaswarupa? Why not all? If Siddhaswarupa can go, why not everyone else? Siddhaswarupa will go, you will go, Samarasunda will go, all others will go. We will have another ISKCON there. Of course, Mr. Nair must stay. This was a demon who was cheating the devotees about some land purchased in Bombay. And he was selling the land to devotees and then trying to sell it to someone else, and then sending gundas or thugs to try to destroy the property. So, in one sense, Prabhupada gave him his blessings by actually like a curse. If somebody does not go, then I shall have to come back to take him there. One should remember this, and every one of my disciples should act in such a way they may go with me, and I may not have to come back to take another birth. Prabhupada is explaining, disciples should try to catch up now, because the Guru becomes obliged that if some disciple is trying to be a little serious, but is not so serious, but does not go back, then the Guru becomes obliged to come for that particular soul or make arrangements with that particular soul so that that soul can further on their devotion in their previous life. But sometimes one will even come to another life, and still have certain patterns that are stagnant and may lose one chance after another to finish up and go back to the spiritual kingdom. I'm especially glad to note that everyone is feeling so much enthusiasm to work very hard in this preaching mission. That enthusiasm must be maintained under all circumstances. That is our price for entering into Krishna's kingdom. And Maya is always trying to take away our enthusiasm to serve Krishna, because without enthusiasm, everything else is finished. So we see from this and previous letter that the disciple makes contract The guru makes contract, but the heavier contract is actually made by the spiritual master. Because the spiritual master is being more uh, forced to be accountable and more monitored by his guru and by previous gurus about fulfilling the contract based on how the contract has been passed down generation after generation. So, in one sense, the spiritual master is to be more careful about the acceptance of a disciple than the disciple is concerned about the acceptance of a teacher, because karmically, the spiritual master will be held more responsible for the contract, even though both are enlisting themselves in a contract. And that's why spiritual teachers who grab to make disciples, that is an immaturity, because by such they will bring many people around them who they may not be able to elevate, or they may have to change their standard of preaching to accommodate people's sinful activities, or they may themselves begin to function in a similar way as those entities who are around them. If they do not raise the consciousness or keep involving and putting a mirror before each person, then gradually no one will begin to look at themselves, and even the teacher himself. Whatever people keep around or accept means something about their own quality and their own nature also. Although there is no force, but if someone is involving themselves in accommodating or too much concessions, then later there's no concessions. One just begins to function on that lower level. Now you must agree to very rigidly follow the rules and regulations, chanting 16 rounds of beads daily, rising early, attending Mangala Arati, observing the 4 principles, attending the classes, eating only Bhagavad Prasadam, as well as working under the instructions of my representatives, such as your GBC representatives and temple presidents. And if you follow this procedure very strictly, then your life will be glorious and you will go back home, back to Godhead. This I can guarantee. I hope this meets you in good health. This is a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote me in 1973. I know you have been attending, now we go to the next letter. Letter he wrote to me in 1973. Yeah. If you follow this procedure very strictly, then your life will be very glorious. You'll go back to home, back to God. This I can guarantee. Hope this meets you in good health. Srila Prabhupada to his dear son, says Ganesham, 16 February 1973. March 74. February 12th, 1974. I know you have been attending our temple. So in this letter, in my own letter, Prabhupada says, now you must agree to very rigidly follow the rules and regulations. In other words, he didn't say you must agree to follow and you will go back. He says you must agree to rigidly, to very, very strictly. And then he says that I guarantee that if you follow like this, you will go back to Godhead. This I guarantee. I know you have been, next letter, I know you have been attending our temple in Boston sometimes, that you wish to be a sincere devotee of Krishna. When that Prabhupada wrote me that letter, I had, let's see, I think I had only been initiated maybe only a year. No, this was my initiation letter. In those days, Prabhupada would, one would be recommended to Prabhupada for initiation, and then there would be some report about the person that would be submitted to Prabhupada, and then he would make an evaluation. Usually he would evaluate based on the person who recommended, the representatives who recommended, and then he would, if he was not giving in present the initiation, he would chant on the beads. The beads would be sent to him. He would chant on the beads, send the beads back, and then send each person a letter and give them their particular name. So at that time he gave me the name of Ganesham, which emphasizes Ganesham means that Krishna is blackish, or it refers to Krishna as blackish like the black cloud. But then he gives me some serious instructions about rigidly following these tenets and attending classes rigorously, following the four principles, eating, Bhagavad Prasadam, and that if such is done, then he says, follow this procedure very strictly. He mentions strictly in here about three times. Then your life will be glorious, and you'll go back to home, back to Godhead. This I can guarantee. So my very first letter from Prabhupada was emphasizing being strict and following very close in such a way. I know you have been attending, and if the disciple fulfills the contract of Guru, what pleases the spiritual master, then there is a guaranteed sense of blessings that any disciple receives by such following. But if an instruction is given, and therefore the instruction, it is said in the Bhagavatam that when the Guru gives an instruction, that clothed within the instruction is also the potency to carry it out. That inherent in the instruction is also some ability or some blessing to carry that out. But that is if you accept that person as Guru, and there's Guru-disciple relationship. Otherwise, no one has any obligation to follow any instruction. Just as you go to a school, this school, that school, and you listen to this, or you go to a church and you listen. So you listen and you decide that is an interesting sermon. I'll use this and I won't use that. That is up to the person. But in a disciple-guru relationship, then one tries their best to follow as best as they can. Now you have been attending our temple in Boston sometimes, and what you wish to be a sincere devotee. So go on faithfully with your chanting and praying to God to give you strength for advancing in His service. It is a fact, however, that we must become free of all material desires before going back to Godhead. This can only be achieved by following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master. So here Prabhupada is saying that really, to go back to the spiritual world, we have to really become like the spiritual world. To enter into the spiritual kingdom, we have to have foremost our love of God as our basic orientation, priority, etc. That means, as we often explain, anything or all things that we are more attached to than to the service of God becomes a disqualification for being able to be with the Lord. When we look at the Bible and we see in the commandments, it says the first commandment is love God with all your heart and all your soul, and that all other commandments are actually rested upon that, meaning that all other tenets of spirituality actually are stemming or latch themselves around that particular commandment. But then, love of God is not a sentimental thing where one says, God, 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 I love God, but then it is not shown, of course, in the manifestations of how one loves and associates and serves the parts of the Lord. And therefore, Jesus says, I was hungry, but you fed me not. I needed shelter, and you offered not, emphasizing that surely that as you do unto the Lord, is that what you do unto me. And in that regards, we can see God, or we can see the prophets, or we can see Jesus in the manifestations of those around us and how we relate, how we treat, how we see the godness in each person. And so we are tuned to the godness in each person, and by that we are tuned to the ultimate Godhead of such. So that is also practice, and it is the spiritual master's duty to help to remind us and to coach us and to guide us in such ways and to keep reminding us of certain pitfalls. Moving on the royal path of devotion is also about sidestepping certain pitfalls that can either cause deterrence or can cause actual stagnation. The whole world is Krishna's property. The material world is a field of activities for the corrupted souls who desire to enjoy an imitation of the Supreme. For them, Krishna gives facility for material enjoyment. But he wants the conditioned souls, after finishing their material enjoyment, to come back to him with better experiences of material existence. My simple request is that you remain in association of devotees and you continue to chant your 16 rounds daily and follow strictly the 4 regular principles and read our books daily with great care. In this way, your Krishna conscious advancement will be assured success. At the end of this life, you will go back to God, back to home. Thank you for your kind sentiment. You're very fortunate to be taking part in the Krishna conscious movement. If you take it very seriously, then you will not have to take another birth in this material world. See, we will be very absorbed in something. The human condition is such that we have to be active. So we'll be very, very absorbed in trying to acquire prestige, or trying to acquire distinction, or trying to catch up with the latest fads. Or we'll be very absorbed, and sometimes trying to carry out, even grudges. Some people, they spend most of their life, sometimes you see this in family feuds, they spend so much of their life energy in trying to see how one family attacks another family, or somebody wants to get back at this person, and they arrange so much of their life, based on that. So one must be active, very much intense in something. And if it is not in something for God consciousness, then it will be their intensity, that energy will be reposed in other areas. And then to that degree, whatever we put the most energy into, that is what we're asking for something in relationship to that for the future. So what we put the most energy into is what we're making a call out to God that we want to align ourselves with in the future. Because what we're doing is more and more what we are becoming. So the more we become affixed and intoxicated God consciousness, the more we center everything around such, or the more that we limit the anxiety and tension and frustration that can affect the consciousness, that we keep the consciousness balanced for the glorifying of the Lord and thanking the Lord for whatever comes before us. And to that degree, we are naturally God intoxicated, or God conscious. As the spiritual world is a God intoxicated environment, one does not enter into such an environment without becoming of that quality. As we were talking 2 days ago, that is simply all the spiritual master's duty really is to be an agent for you, 1, to coach you, 2, for you to practice with, for what ultimately you have to present to God. It's like somebody is going to a piano recital. They'll have to do a piano, recital. And the piano instructor is instructing the student, play like this, do like this, watch this, watch that. And then one day, the child is out there on the stage having to perform for the audience. Now being able to show and give what they have developed. Now if that child hasn't learned very clearly, then under such tension of lights and all these people, the child will simply become confused, or will lose his or her equilibrium. Because under the pressure, then if one hasn't mastered something rather well, then it will show. Because when you're tense, you automatically lose some of your natural skill and abilities sometimes, at least initially. And so such person will go through the symptoms of fear and shock, and then will even lose, or there will be a block in their ability to perform something that they normally could perform. But if they have mastered it very deeply, it's become a part of them, even though when the mind or the senses become a little fearful and disoriented, still one will not miss the chance to play and to perform. So spiritual master knows that living entity has to go through many, many tests. And the final test is the test of the last moments of life into death, or life into transition. And if one has not been trained in how to always remember the lovingness of God, one has not been trained in how to move through conflicts and how to see that behind each situation that God is there for some reason, then when such bewilderment and incoherence comes into consciousness, because at the time of death, also much of one's previous life and even past life reflections start coming to you. So many different things, begin to unfold, and then the mind can become very confused about what to identify with and what is going on. Or mind can become very much even angry that why has the Lord put one in such a situation? And those moments before the transition determines now what air or what focus the soul, will be directed. But obviously, the direction that the soul takes during that time is really based on what has been accumulated before that time. And what has been accumulated is on a strong foundation, then the entity just moves right through and makes the acceleration. Don't become discouraged by any so-called problems. That's why it's very dangerous when people, they go to the churches or to any organization and they spend so much time just looking at who's dressed with what, who is playing around with this one or that one, what is the latest gossip, etc. Because those thoughts now, they make impressions on the consciousness. And many of those kind of thoughts, the soul is engaged. When such person begins to unfold, having to leave this physical body, then all those kind of thoughts are dominant in the consciousness. Then that is not very wonderful, because those kind of thoughts are going to direct, where the soul goes. But if so much around such person has been thoughts of transcendence or thoughts in relationship to serving the world, serving others, serving the supreme, if that has been a priority, then one will move through. Otherwise, at the time of death, one will be thinking about, but what's going to happen, to my cat? Who's going to take care of my dog? I didn't finish my mortgage. I have to do that. All those things have to be put in the background, as now we look at that which is eternal and permanent, rather than that which is temporary. Or one is thinking, so I wonder how I look. Maybe my face is distorted. They didn't put any powder on me. They didn't put any lipstick. Some people are so body conscious that even when they're deathly sick, they're just thinking, but how do I look? I'm going to come in and see that, that my eye makeup is not straight, and those kind of thoughts will carry with them as they're making the transition. Or somebody will be thinking, oh no, if I leave now, then I won't be able to, get the interest off my stocks. Or if I leave now, they're gonna take over my car, my house, and my money. Oh no, what can I do? And those will be such meditations, and they will bring the soul down in terms of the heights that the soul can be able to achieve. But the thoughts during that time are all based upon what the way that one is thinking from day to day. So sometimes people think devotees are a little bit kind of morbid. They're always thinking about some kind of simplicity and some level of renunciation, or talking too much about spiritual kingdom or heaven or life after death. But that is just practical. Someone says, but let's deal with the here and now. But of course, for here and now we're in this room, but in an hour or so, some of you will be at home on your way to work, this place, that place. So you are attentive also to what you're doing now and what you will have to pass through or encounter. That is all a part of natural intelligence. It's not a matter of being romantic or idealistic. It's a matter of actually being more practical. Or if you're in the house here, but next door and in front of us, the houses are burning, and someone says, but don't worry about that out there. That's somebody else's house, or you don't have to deal with that. It's not a part of your situation, but it is, because according now to how that fire spreads, your house may also burn. So you are looking at those variables as you go on and do what you have to do in your situation. Other one becomes so intoxicated with the idea of transcendence that the person is not able to carry out the very natural order of activities. Those things are there and should be carried out even more meticulously, not less. More meticulously, so one doesn't have to put additional energy. Because when you do something superficial, usually you have to come back and do it again. You have to patch up, or you have to and reflect on it too much. But if you do something nicely, then you can move from that situation to the next. So the devotee should not be a cop-out in terms of their involvement in society, but when involving in certain things, they should do it even more conscientiously, because they should be thinking, this is also a service to the Lord. I'll do this as a service to the Lord. I clean my house as a service to the Lord. It's something in my heart. I take care of my children, not less, or with care, or even more with care, because I realize that, oh, this is a child that's sent to me by the Lord. I relate to my husband and my wife, no less care or more care, and thinking that, oh, so the Lord is aligning with this particular soul. Now let me see what is service that I can do, or how we can complement each other. We're always in the mood of the fact that the relationship of support, and we have spiritual support. Please see that they are all chanting 16 rounds on their beads and following the rules and regulations. They have to become very strict in this matter. Go back to God. It's not an easy thing. That's a prophet emphasizing strict. He's not just trying to impose upon us, letting us know what the price is. It requires great discipline of body and mind and performance of pure devotion and service. Now, why is strictness and discipline so important? Well, we know in anything you do, to be focused is important, to be centered, to be disciplined. But even more so in spiritual life, because as you're disciplined, then you're to that much more degree offering your wholeness, or everything you are, to God. As you're disciplined, you are more and more then saying, okay, Lord, I'm your servant. Now help me to do this, to do that, as you like, in such ways. So being disciplined gives us the prerequisites in being able to get more of the mercy of the Lord, because then we have aligned ourselves to what God has said to be done. Now it's up to Him to allow the mercy to come to us so that we can be joyous in this life and as well as in the next. Not that we will be joyous in the next life. In this lifetime, it's just suffering. No, it should not be like that. Because even as we are strict, and even when there is something that may cause what may seem to be suffering, it doesn't cause suffering in the same way it does for the normal person. When there is strictness and there is even some complication, then you find that inevitably that complication turns into more realization. Inevitably. It is categorical. I am in due receipt of your letter dated August 31st. But see what happens in some people's consciousness, and you all see it because it'll happen how it happened to some of you from time to time, is that sometimes we kind of lose really the feeling that it's actually possible to go back to Godhead. We kind of lose the faith that we can do it in this lifetime. And so therefore, we don't maintain such a strictness because we're kind of feeling a little bit, well, I can't really attain that. Nobody else can either. And it is like even too difficult. And therefore, we gradually find ways to kind of minimize authority, minimize the scripture, minimize principles, minimize certain things when it's related to us. When it's related to others, we won't minimize it. When it's related to us, we'll minimize it. Because in the background, it means that we are kind of losing a little bit of our faith about our ability to go back in this lifetime, or anybody's ability to direct us or to take us back or to go back with us. I'm in due receipt of your letter dated August the 31st, 1975. Now see, there are three ways of going back to Godhead. There's what is called Nitya Siddha, which means that one is just parading or in disguise, but they're already a resident of the spiritual kingdom, and so they come down or they interact in this involvement for the benefit of the world. They automatically go back because they're just like on loan, so to speak, from the spiritual world. So that kind of automatically goes back, always thinking of the Lord, etc. Then there is what is known as Sadhana Siddha, and that is one who has followed everything given by their spiritual master, by the scriptures. They follow it strictly. And so gradually, they elevate from one level of consciousness to the next. They first do things out of just a matter of duty, and then later they begin to understand more why things are being asked about or asked to be done. And then later, it's no longer duty. They begin to enjoy certain things that are part of the requirements. And then later, they get such a taste that it turns into a background of ecstasy, that it turns into like a spiritual intoxication. And one may begin to have various types of experiences where the Lord helps to kind of encourage that person to understand their level of progress and to appreciate the fact that they're on the right path and to go on. And sometimes in some people's lives it may be very consistent. Sometimes at different points they may get some super blessings or additional interventions in such a way. And then later it turns into pure, mature, you see, devotional sentiment and understanding. things. You don't see things. You don't know what's happening in the inner. First, not so much difference from the chanting, but they notice a big difference when they don't chant. Then they see a difference. And then later they begin to see that the chanting is really helping them to be more grounded and protecting them from certain things, or helping them to have more desire to, to love the Lord. And so it starts first from accepting the instruction and feeling, well, I feel that this guidance is something that I can take some advantage of. And then they follow, do like this. Then they see the symptoms. Or the doctor says, take these herbs, take this. And you do it with an understanding that, well, I trust this doctor, let me try. What do I have to lose? If it doesn't work, I haven't lost anything, but a little money. And if it does work, then how much I am in better health, or how much I have prevented some sickness. So then after the herbs begin to work, then you feel, oh, okay, I feel a little more comfortable with this. I'll be more expert in taking this. I'll take a little more, etc. So that is the sadhana process of one going back to Godhead. By having some faith, not being so sure, but having some faith and trying and being carried. But then the next phase is called, the last aspect is called kripa siddha. And that is where a person has not even been so expert in the following out the process, but they are serious in that they really do want God. But they have some weaknesses, or they have poor association, or they have some other complication that has become a little dominant in their life. Maybe even they just had bad health, and because of that, it caused them to be faithless sometimes, to question, God's mercy, or it made it difficult for them in being able to read, to hear classes, to chant, so many things. But in the basic aspect of their consciousness, there was sincerity. So in such cases, then this is a special category called kripa siddha, that such person still may go back to Godhead, because even though they may have not been so expert in so many areas, but they really, the stronger aspect of their consciousness, that they actually really want to serve God. So in such cases, then the spiritual master is able to complement or to add to whatever they have, or what little is missing. And that is called kripa siddha, where special mercy is extended and such person is able to go back. Now, it doesn't mean that someone just, decides that they can't do this, and so they say, well, it's too hard trying to avoid drinking or smoking or gambling. Then they do those things, and they fall prey to that and say, well, I should be able to go back home because I'm serious in all other areas. But that is something that it is not impossible for someone to rise above. But sometimes there's a general weakness in consciousness, or just because of the past, we've all been cheated by this person, that person. So therefore, having trust in someone these days is almost impossible. Because basically, the government cheats you, the teachers cheat you, spiritual leaders cheat you, and even lovers cheat each other. So it's very difficult in Kali Yuga to really trust anybody. But that's why we ultimately try to trust God, knowing that God will not cheat us. And if we want to serve the Lord, then the Lord will shine through even a cheating situation for us. So then what happens is that given that in Kali Yuga there's so much impersonalism, there is so much cheating mentality, there is so much body conscious, there's so much economic deprivation. So given all of that, it becomes harder for someone to have a clear mind in service to the Lord. And even you'll see among spiritualists, sometimes they're like one person one day, another person another day. One day they're glorifying something, the next day they're minimizing, the next day they're trying to sidestep this, sidestep that. Kali Yuga is very difficult for the entity trying to pursue spiritual life. But if underlining all of that, the basic consciousness is that of really wanting to surrender to the Lord, then where there's weakness, then two things happen. One, sometimes such souls they will go to a planet where Krishna is having a road show. Road show means that in different universes, God is interacting with some of his eternal servants. And so someone who has some small patterns that have to be dealt with before going back, but they're so close, then they will go in their next life where Krishna is associating in the universe in a certain pastime, and they will associate with some of the eternal servants of the Lord, with the Lord, and by that associations, or those associations, then some last remaining patterns will be wiped away or rectified, as that person now in the next life will be able to go directly back to Godhead. It's not that everyone has to go to an environment for the last cleansing, but some souls do, and many souls have to. That is there along with the spiritual master bidding or complimenting where this person is actually lacking. But the scripture says no one should consider that they are worthy of that classification. Just as everybody should go to the university and try to get their degree if they want to excel in academic excellence. But still, even though that is there, sometimes someone is called in and given an honorary degree. A person should not think that they don't have to go to the university, they can get an honorary degree. But sometimes due to one's outstanding performance, university gives them an honorary degree. So sometimes due to one who is aspiring in Krishna consciousness and they've had some weaknesses, but due to their outstanding performances, then they may be given a chance to go back to Godhead anyway by the last cleansing taking place, or by the spiritual master making some additional extension to help that particular soul. But of course, this is rare. It is not the normal rule. Usually somebody has to go and get their degree. So normally we have to follow everything, and then we go step by step. And because we followed, and the contract is there, then it becomes obliged to Krishna and Guru that they have to do their stuff as we do ours. That's why throughout these letters, Prabhupada is saying, do this, and I can, in some cases, even said, I can guarantee. Meaning that if you don't do, then there is no guarantee. And where he's emphasizing strictness and following very conscientiously. So we read this last part of this letter. You have taken seriously this work, and I know that my Guru Maharaj is pleased with you because he wanted this. So by this your endeavor, your endeavor, you will go back home, back to Godhead. Let me first of all finish my Bhagavatam. We can take up the others. So I wish to thank you for your cooperation. Because of your cooperation, therefore, it has been possible for me to publish alone the first 3 volumes. I had to take so much trouble. But by your cooperation of your American boys and girls, now this has become possible. So that's the end of the section on Prabhupada speaking about different letters written to different devotees about going back to Godhead, where he's encouraging them to not to lose their faith or not to minimize the contract, to follow and to realize that if they follow, then Krishna is not going to break his contract, or Guru is not going to break his contract. But if the devotee is aspiring properly, then even though sometimes there may be some weaknesses in some areas, but if there's a greater sense of determination and is very dominant, then even still one can have a chance to go back to the kingdom of God. Maya's duty, though, is to try to make one feel that, oh, it's too difficult, or to lose the intensity, and then what happens is that one loses the focus or the centeredness. And to that degree, some Maya kind of comes in and throws a curve and begins to make the person feel that going back to Godhead is not really even so possible in this lifetime. And then by thinking like that, one begins to doubt Krishna's mercy, or doubt Krishna's promise, or doubt Guru's promise, or doubt the potency of the necessity of associating with Vaishnavas in a loving spirit. And if that happens, then Krishna consciousness becomes something like a religion, where a philosophy is there, but it's not really considered that it's applied and it's active and it's really real or can be experienced in this lifetime. Any questions or any comments? Prabhupada is addressing going back to Godhead, finishing the activities of this world, and being able literally to go back home. Dhananjaya?
I have a question that's based on something you were saying last week about our consciousness while performing activities. You were saying, like when we're cooking in the kitchen, if our consciousness is not purified, then you're saying then the effect will not be so pure. Or you're saying to the degree that we have purified consciousness while performing some activities, to that same degree, the result will be there. You gave the example of doing activities in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, my question is that, say when we're cooking in the kitchen, someone was saying, I addressed this question to a devotee in New York, and he was saying that when we do something, like cook, for example, if our consciousness is directed towards the spiritual master, then it's okay. But it was kind of confusing the way he said it. I really don't understand. But my understanding is that according to your consciousness, while you're performing some activities, it has to be like done for Krishna's pleasure. Otherwise, the result will not be there. It's really
yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I was addressing the fact that an action done with knowledge and devotion has more potency. Even though you may do a devotional activity, mechanically, it will have potency, but it will not have the same potency. Or if you do it, grudgingly, it does not have the same effect. Sometimes someone will do something for another, but it's in a grudging mood. Even though it's done, it's not having the same consciousness. And doesn't necessarily have the same effect. But even more so when it comes to devotional service. We can do something because of being in a devotional atmosphere, there will naturally be blessings and benediction. As much as you involve yourself in any area of the devotional shower or the devotional culture. But there's quality of absorption or quality of service or different quality of experiences. And my point was that the more that we have a sense of appreciation for what we do, why we do, then the more that can have potency. The more that we do it not in a grudging mood or not just because someone asked, but because we also feel, the need to do it. That's why an instruction really shouldn't be given by an authority or by guru that just given an instruction. It should be given with an understanding of why this situation can be a better arrangement than this or that. And then it's up to the disciple to try to for you to practice with what ultimately you have to present to God. It's like somebody is going to a piano recital, going to do a piano recital, and the piano instructor is instructing the student, play like this, do like this, don't watch this, watch that. And then one day, the child on the stage, having to perform for the audience, now being able to show them what they have developed. I heard that child didn't learn very clearly. Then under such tension of lights and all these people, the child becomes confused or loses his or her equilibrium because under the pressure, then one has to master something very well. Then it will show because under intense lose some of the natural skill and ability sometimes that we can do. And so this person will go through the symptoms of fear and shock, and then will even lose and will be blocked their ability to perform something that they normally could perform. But if they have mastered it very deeply, to become a part of them, even though the mind or the senses become a little fearful and disoriented, still one will not miss the chance to play and to perform. So Spirit Master knows that everything has to go through many tests. And the final test is the test of the last moment of life and death, or life and transition. And one has not been trained in how to always remember the loveliness of God. One has not been trained in how to move through conflicts and how to see that behind each situation that God is there for some reason. Then such bewilderment and incoherence comes into consciousness because at the time of death, also much of one's previous life and past life reflections start coming to lead to the things to begin to unfold. And then the mind can become very confused about what to identify with and what is going on. Or mind can become very much even angry. But why has the Lord put one into the situation? In those moments before the transition, it determines now what area or what focus of the soul will be directed. But obviously, the direction that the soul takes during that time is really based on what has been accumulated before that time. And what has been accumulated is on a strong foundation. Then it really just moves right through.
all those kind of thoughts are dominant in your consciousness, then that is not very wonderful, because those kind of thoughts are going to direct, where the soul goes. But if so much around this person has been thoughts of transcendence, or thoughts of relationship to serving the world, serving others, serving the supreme, judge and the priority, then one will move through. Otherwise, the time of death, one will be thinking about what's going to happen, to my cat, who's going to take care of my dog, I didn't finish my mortgage, have to do that. All those things have to be put in the background. Because now we look at that which is eternal and permanent, rather than that which is temporary. Or one is thinking, so I wonder how I look. Maybe my face is distorted. I didn't put any powder on me. I didn't put any lipstick. Some people with body conscious when they're definitely sick. They're just thinking, how do I look? Come in and see that, that my eye makeup is not straight, And those kind of thoughts will fade with them. And they're making the transition. Or somebody thinking, oh no, if I leave now, then I'll be able to, get the interest of my stocks. Or if I leave now, well, they're going to take over my car and my house and my money. Oh no, what can I do? Nobody does meditation. And they will bring the soul down in terms of the heights of the soul. And someone is thinking from day to day. So sometimes people think, are literally kind of mortgaged. They're always thinking about some kind of simplicity, some level of renunciation. But of course, we're here now in this room, but in an hour or so, we will be at home on your way to work, this place, that place. So you will attempt to also do what you're doing now, or what you do. It's a matter of actually being more practical. Or if you're in a house here, but next door, and in front of us, the houses are burning, and someone says, don't worry about that out here. But it is, because going down how the fire spreads, you make your house also burn, so you are looking at those rebels as you go on and do what you have to do in your situation. It's a very natural order of activities. Those things are there. You should be carried out even more meticulously, not less. More meticulously, so one doesn't have to put additional energy and reflect on it too much, but if you do something nicely, then you can move from that situation to the next. So the devotee should not be a cop-out in terms of their involvement in society, but when involved in certain things, they should do even more conscientiously, because they should be thinking of thing in my heart. I can save my children, not less, but with care, but even more with care, because I realize that, this is a child that's sent to me by the Lord. I relate to my husband and my wife, what services I can do, or how we can complement each other. We're always in the mood of the fact that the relationship of beings and following the rules and regulations, we have to become very strict in this matter, to go back to God. It's not an easy thing. Not so poverty emphasizes strict. It's providing in mind the performance of pure devotional service. And why is strictness and discipline so important? Well, anything you do, to be focused is important, to be centered. When your wholeness, whatever you are to God. And your discipline, you are more and more than saying, okay, Lord, I'm your servant. Now help me do this, do that, as the Lord. Because then we have aligned ourselves to what God has said to be done. Now it's up to Him to allow the mercy to come to us so that we can be joyous in this life. No, it should not be like that. Because even as we are strict, anyone there is something that may cause, what may seem to be suffering, doesn't cause suffering the same way as a normal person can go. I am enduring from your letter date August 31st. See what happens in some people's consciousness.
And you all say, because it'll happen how it happened to some of you kind of time.
That sometimes we kind of lose the thing that is actually possible for us. We kind of lose the faith that we can do in this lifetime. And so therefore, we gradually find ways to kind of minimize authority, minimize the picture, minimize principles, minimize certain things when it's related to us, related to other people, minimize it. We our ability to go back in this lifetime, minimize the ability to direct us, or to take us back, or to go back with us. I'm in Dewey, your later date August 31st, means that one is just parading on this guise, but they're already resident of the spiritual kingdom, and so they come down, or they interact in this involvement of the benefit of the world. The other 90 people, the Lord, center. Then there is what is known as Siddhana Center. And that is one who has followed everything given by your spiritual master, by the scriptures. They follow strictly. And later they begin to understand more why things are being asked about, are to be done. And then later, it's no longer duty. They begin to enjoy certain things that are part of the requirements. And then later, they get to such intoxication. And one, they begin to have very nice experiences. When the Lord helps to kind of encourage that person to understand their level of progress